All right, so obviously this war hasn't gotten any better. No shocker to pretty much everybody, right? I mean, we all thought that this was going to be Venezuela and we were just going to go in there, kick ass, topple a dictator, and then everyone was going to give us their oil. Of course, I'm joking. That is not what happened. Darren, how have you been interpreting this conflict as we've gotten to this point?
I'm interpreting it as being very bad. It's obviously not
It
going.
bad doesn't seem to go far enough. I would, and I don't use this word regularly, but I would clusterfuck.
Oh, certainly. I mean, and as of now, we have yet to realize how bad it is has yet to be realized. But if it continues, let's say the Strait of Hormuz is closed for another 4 weeks, and there's no tankers getting out. Uh, what happens when oil prices skyrocket to close to double what they are now? I mean, that's gonna. I mean, just think of the economic effects. It's a global depression. I mean, because for one thing, the Asian countries they pretty much all get their oil from the Middle Eastern, Gulf Cooperation Council states. So, that's where, so they won't have access to hardly any. And then the stuff they do have access to, since it's, a fungible commodity, if it's gone over there, then the oil they can get from other places is going to skyrocket. So it's going to be, well, not six, sorry, 200 a barrel. So, 6, 7 a gallon. We can afford that. It'll be hard. It'll be incredibly hard on us, but we can swing it here in America. Those Asian countries, they cannot. So, yeah, I mean, they won't be able to cook as much. They won't be able to run the electricity in their buildings. It's going to be pretty catastrophic, and there's going to be so many downstream effects. If these Asian countries don't have the energy to support what their businesses, well, that's where everything is manufactured. So that's going to also cause inflation, not only in derivative of fuel prices here in the U.S., but also derivative of the fact that people across the world are going to be able to be less productive, and so there will be less goods. So this is a huge catastrophe in the waiting.
Oh, without a doubt. And it's not just energy, right? I mean, energy is the biggest one, right? But fertilizer also comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, right?
Very true.
And people think that it's just the Strait. I really wish they would stop doing that because this like Iran has control over the entire Persian Gulf, essentially. Like we literally just read before we, started this podcast that a Kuwaiti oil tanker got shot and it was not anywhere near the strait, right? So like they are shooting all the way from, Kuwait all the way down inside the Indian Ocean. So it's not just like they have this choke point that's a problem. And as you know, they're striking inside Qatar, Dubai, Saudi. They hit a U.S. air base in Saudi Arabia. And so it's like, well, clearly we underestimated their capabilities a little bit, right? So
Oh yeah.
uh, we had no concept. That was the shocking part to me. Not to linger too much on this, but they said that they never thought, never even considered that Iran would close the strait. They never, it's the one card the Iranians have, and they
Yeah.
never planned, never thought that they would actually do this. They thought, I'm not kidding. Like I want everyone to wrap their brain about how crazy of an idea this is. They thought that if we went in there, killed their ayatollah, their leader, killed a bunch of their top military officials, killed a bunch of their top clerics, their top peace negotiators. They thought that they were not going to do hardly anything. in response. They thought that they were just going to capitulate or be overthrown by their people. I cannot wrap my head around the level of dumbassery that is going on right now. And the only way this makes sense is if we consider who is actually in the room controlling the information that Trump gets and who is in the room like making the decisions. It's not like Joe Kent, right? Darren, you're familiar with Joe Kent?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So for the audience who does not know, he ran for Congress twice. He failed twice, but before that, he's a former Green Beret, former CIA operator. He was in the GWAT, so he's a global war on terror veteran, right? And then he was appointed during Trump's second term to be the National Counterterrorism Director. And he resigned over this war, right? Because during Midnight Hammer, there was apparently, and he's gone on the record about this. This is not speculation. This is not, insider stuff with unnamed sources. Like, this is confirmed by somebody who was in the room that during Midnight Hammer, there was robust debate about, like, when we do it, how we do it, what is the response going to be from Iran? What do we need to leverage afterwards, right? There was no such discussion this time. There was no, I mean, Rubio said it himself, right? He said the reason we did this is because Israel said that they were going to attack Iran, and our fear was that Iran was going to blame us and attack U.S. troops in the region or U.S. assets in the region. And so that's why we joined in. And it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Joe Kent's statement when he resigned, and I thought for the most part it was a really good statement, and I like how it was pretty, to the point. It was like, hey, I mean, this is all because of the Israelis, and their strong foreign or their strong domestic lobby here in the U.S. So, he was very direct, which I did like. The only thing I didn't like about his statement was that he refrained. He still refrained even after resigning. He still refrained from criticizing Trump directly. He criticized the people influencing Trump, but not the man himself. So I felt like his statement in that respect missed the mark because I think ultimately the buck stops at Trump. So you
So
know
So I agree, but if I may allow, for the audience, like this guy is not an idiot, right? This dude is not some average, Joe who went over there and fought. This dude was an army ranger, right? Like this guy was in special forces. I'm not exactly sure which, but this is not an idiot. He was a CIA operator in the Middle East. He was fought in Syria. This is a very educated, very informed individual. I'm telling you, the reason he's not as upfront is because it's calculated. He's trying to reach Trump. He's not trying to condemn Trump. He's trying to change the course of the ship, right? And nothing's going to come if he criticizes Trump directly. And I think that's why. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm on your side actually that I think that he should man up and he should probably tell Trump that this is all his fault for falling into these lies. But that's at least the understanding that I have of why he chose the words he did.
Yeah, I mean, that you're probably 100% right. I mean, it's certainly calculated. Because maybe it is his desire to reach Trump on some level and hope that Trump sees reason. But I guess I'm more cynical. I'm like, at this point, I don't know that reason can touch this man. So you might as well just go all out. But nonetheless, though, I mean, the statement itself was very good. The I think the line that was most memorable, I mentioned it earlier, is like, this yada yada, this was because of Israel and their powerful American lobby, something to that effect. And I thought it was incredibly brave, and a good development, even if it didn't go quite as far as I would have liked it to.
Yeah, he
Uh,
goes into. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, no, go on, go.
Oh, I was gonna change it, so this is all your or move on a little bit, but it's up to you.
Oh yeah, you can move on it.
Okay.
Uh,
He goes on, and I've watched basically. So it's really weird because it kind of tells you where we are in the media world. Because a guy like Joe Kent resigns over the war. I mean, just for the audience who may not know, this is actually the highest ranking U.S. official to resign as a result of a war. So this is very interesting. This would be like MacArthur or Eisenhower, after Pearl Harbor or after D-Day resigning. Like this makes no sense, right? So this is a big deal, and he goes into pretty big uh, talks about this on these podcasts, and it's just really weird because 20 years ago, right, he would have been on 60 Minutes, or he would have been on Primetime Fox, or the Sunday Show, right? And instead,
yeah.
he's going on Tucker Carlson, The Young Turks, Sean Ryan. It's just really interesting, but his calculation, and this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our podcast, is like in terms of how we got here, is that this was not a calculated decision on the United States behalf, right? We were pushed into this or forced on behalf of the Israeli government, specifically like Netanyahu, right? So one of the areas I wanted to talk about that first is the shifting red line that he talks about. So he'll mention it in every single podcast. The red line used to be from 2000 to now was that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, right? And that's very famously Trump's red line, right? As people may remember. And we used to be making progress towards that, like the JCPOA. For those of you who don't know, it's the Iran nuclear deal, right? Which unfroze some stuff, collected all their uranium, opened them up to investigations, and eased some oil sanctions. And then Trump comes in, gets rid of that, and the red line in the second Trump term shifts from Iran can't have a nuke to no enrichment, right? So, for those of you who don't think that that's a big difference, that is a massive difference because you're equating enrichment to a nuclear weapon, right? And this is a non-starter for the Iranians for obvious reasons. It's a non-starter for any country because you're basically like, who the hell are you to come in here and tell them what they can do with their country? So I was just curious if you'd thought about that or like what you think about that or if you've even heard this before.
Oh yeah, I mean it all stems ultimately. I think Trump wanted to just one up Obama because in 2015 Obama brokered or well, it had been in the works since before 2015, but he had landed this historical deal with many countries plus Iran. There were many signatories to it, but all that being said, it was a huge diplomatic breakthrough. It was working just fine. Trump, when he gets in, does he do it in 2017 or 2018? I forget which year, but
I think it's
he.
17. It's one of the first things he does.
Okay, I was about to say I think he did it pretty early on. I just didn't know if it was in his first year, but yeah, he rips it up, and he's basically he thinks he can get a better deal, and he wasn't satisfied that the deal would eventually expire. I believe it actually would have expired this year, if not last year. It was like a 10-year deal, and he thought he could get a better one. And lo and behold, here we are now. He obviously has not gotten a better one, and all his brinksmanship and this bravado with which he approaches foreign policy is bit him in the butt. So, I mean, ultimately, you can link the crisis, even if we had not gone in with Israel and done like 1,000 strikes in 24 hours or whatever a few weeks ago. Even if we hadn't done that, this crisis all existed because he had to rip it up, the JCPOA up. in 2017. It's like he could have just kept it going and extended it, this time around in his second term, and all would have been well. But of course, just dumb decision after dumb decision.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta just kind of step back and wonder, like, what are we doing? Like, we're doing this again. I mean, it's to the point where the American people are like, really? Like, even hardcore Trump supporters, some of them are pulling back and they're like, really? Like, we're doing this again? It's the exact same lies, right? Just like when Netanyahu came over here and spilled the tea on the, phantom nuclear weapons that Saddam Hussein was building. They give us these false hopes of Iran, and they say that they're building a nuke. And for those of you who don't know, like, I don't know if you know what a fatwa is, Darren, right? But
Oh yeah.
it's basically a religious document for the for Islam. And in Iran, it basically says that we don't believe in nuclear weapons. They're what's the haram? Yeah, that's haram, right? So, and all of our intelligence. I just want to be very clear on this one. All 18 of our intelligence agencies still hold to the position to this day that the fatwa was holding, and that Iran was not encroaching towards a nuclear bomb. Never invested fully in a nuclear bomb. That's just, if you have a problem with it, you take it up with the FBI, the CIA, naval intelligence, Air Force intelligence, Army intelligence, right? You take it up with all of them, right? You don't take it up with me. Take it up with Tulsi Gabbard. I have no interest in this debate anymore, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, they certainly weren't anywhere close. I mean, even before we bombed their nuclear site, Fordow, last year. You mentioned Tulsi Gabbard, director of national intelligence. She said before we did that, in some briefing, I forget who I forget which person or which committee or whatever she was presenting to, but she said it was, you know, her in her estimation they were years away or something. So even if they started right then and there, enriching, so to that point, so obviously, and then after we bombed them, in Bordeaux, that obviously set them back somewhat. So the idea that we had to go in to stop them for otherwise they might get a nuke, that's obviously false. And it's just falsity after falsity. I mean, I think everybody's hip to it now, so it almost seems trite saying it, but you know there's no real clear reason why we went in other than, well, Israel was going to do it, so
Which, by the way, I can't imagine was unique to President Trump in his second term. I mean, we have to believe that after October 7th, and at least Joe Biden was pressured by the Israelis, right, to go do regime change. I mean, to be fair, Netanyahu's only been arguing for 40 years, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, if you argue for something for that long, I feel like you're kind of owed a little bit, right? So, of course, I'm being a little jackass about it. But no, I just think that it's shocking to me that we're all shocked, and it's supposed to be some grand conspiracy theories that Israel pushed us in this direction when they're screaming it at the top of their lungs, right? And Lindsey Graham is screaming at it from the top of the mountain, and Ted Cruz is on Fox News every night telling us why we need to go to war for Israel. And no, everyone is talking about how we're conspiracy theorists, right? And it doesn't make any sense to me. And then we have Donald Trump and Marco Rubio say, well, we had to go in because Israel was going to go in, right? Like, this is every other president told him no, said absolutely not. And he just felt emboldened. I don't know if it was manipulation. I don't know if after Venezuela he thought he could do it, you know? But whatever the story is, it doesn't matter now how we got here. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure you also probably disagree with that too. But the most important part is now, like, now what, right? But before we get
Yeah.
there, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, well, yeah, let's go on to now what? Because he Trump is in quite the predicament because on the one hand, even though it would be good to reach a diplomatic resolution of this conflict, uh, at this point, Iran does not want that. So you would only be able to get a diplomatic resolution if you handed over pretty heavy concessions, because as of right now, Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. So, in some ways, they're in a better position than when the war started because they weren't controlling it before a few weeks ago. So, now it's like if you pull out now and all you've done is kill a lot of the leadership, and granted, we exacted a heavy toll. We took out their navy and a lot of their air defense and their any air force they might have had. We certainly did do that. We caused a lot of destruction, but we haven't achieved our strategic goal of regime, our first strategic goal of regime change. And now, because we can't achieve that, our new strategic goal is to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And it's like, well, that was already open before we started this war. So, in some ways, if even though we've totally kicked their butt and killed a ton of them, it's like, on one hand, it's nuanced. So even though, we're definitely the stronger adversary here, uh, you know, they are getting the strategic victory because their win condition is that they survive. So if we find that this economic turmoil they're inflicting is too much to bear and we lay off, then that's kind of a strategic victory for them, and that is going to diminish our deterrent threat, our credibility worldwide. If we pull back now, unfortunately, and it's gonna, if anything, strengthen the Iranian regime because they're going to be able to say to their people, "Look, a bunch of us died, and we got our entire navy and other parts of our military totally wiped out, but we faced off toe to toe with the world superpower, and we're still standing, even if we got beat up quite a bit." So, uh, it in terms of regime change, will have totally failed to do that. And then if you want, and so that was like one solution of ending the conflict, and that's what'll happen if we reach a diplomatic solution right now, is we lose credibility worldwide, and then that has downstream effects, like, oh, maybe China goes for Taiwan or something because they perceive us to be a paper tiger now. But
Well, not even just that, right? I mean, I'm sure as people know, right? We've had to pull so much power from the Pacific Fleet and the Atlantic portion to CENTCOM, which is U.S. Central Command in the Middle East. So our capabilities of defending Taiwan, which, listen, I mean, Joe Kent said it. I didn't say it, right? He's the expert, not me. He said that our ability to defend Taiwan was skeptical even before, but now he was like, because we're having to pull everything away, we're having to take away like THAAD missiles out of Korea and out of Japan because we're using all of them in the Middle East. So our capabilities are being diminished, and there's no denying that. So I just wanted to echo your point really quick.
oh yeah, I mean it's really, I mean, strategically, it's it's all bad because the probably the most important region that we should be focusing on is the Pacific. China is obviously the greatest threat we face, even though they're not necessarily they're not a hostile right now. They are a world rival, so there's a lot of potential there. And the fact that we're getting bogged down in this, it's a huge vulnerability. I think the only thing, or one of the few things saving us, is that China has many problems of its own, and uh, actually, they just had a huge military shakeup before we launched this war in Iran. So thankfully, I don't think right now that they're too keen on invading. I think they probably could. Still, I don't think right now they will. Fingers crossed. But uh, I digress. So the other thing, I just laid out what could go wrong if we pursued, the diplomatic route, which is probably still the preferable route. But here's what'll happen if Trump tries to de-escalate via escalation. Uh, you know, I'm sure the listeners have probably heard.
Really quick, before you switch to that, I just want to say really quick about like your previous model. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah,
the major issue with that, with the diplomatic route, is obviously, Iran doesn't want to negotiate. Israel has zero interest in negotiating, even less so than the Iranians, because their strategic goal, right, is regime change. So they are
hmm
pushing for that, right? And then also, we no longer control the escalatory ladder. So it is not our decision when this war ends. That is the problem. And for those of you who are like, well, we can just pull out and we can just leave and declare victory, that's not so simple because the whole reason, for those of you who don't know, the GCC, the Global Gulf, or sorry, the Gulf Country Council, right? They
yeah, Gulf
deal,
Cooperation
yeah,
Council.
thank you. They all deal in the petrodollar, which is basically the USD, all oil that is like the transaction from like, say, Qatari oil, Kuwaiti oil to say Japan. That transaction has to be done in USD, and the US gets a little bit of a fee, and that's called the petrodollar. It's not a real currency, but and then we use the interest on that. We invest into the stock market. The only reason that everyone does USD in that market is because of the security guarantees from the United States that come with it. How good are your security guarantees right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And all these, things that used to be power projection points. So like everything, like all of our bases in the region are now liabilities because they're within striking distance of Iran. So like we don't control when this ends, and we can't just pull out because pulling out, I mean, who knows? Maybe if we're not there projecting power, who is? Who fills the vacuum? But anyway, go on to now. What if we realize that we no longer control how much this escalates, and now we're like, screw it, we're gonna escalate to de-escalate.
yeah. So this is where it gets really scary because there's really only two options to escalate to de-escalate. Rather, you have to, you know, put put out a ground force, launch a ground force of some kind or other, uh, or you nuke them. I mean, those really are, if you think about it, the only two possible things we can do. And Trump has been trying to, I think, you know, find a creative third solution. So I'm sure if any of our viewers are tapped in, they've probably heard little tidbits and inklings of, people will say, okay, maybe the U.S. can capture Karg Island, which is this island that uh, it's like where 90% of Iran's oil exports they have to pass through there. Uh, and if we capture it, then we won't have destroyed their infrastructure, but we'll be holding it hostage. Uh, so maybe Iran won't be willing to drone strike it because they'll want to protect their own infrastructure once the war is over. And then maybe we can use that as a bargaining chip to end the war. Only problem with that is, we at this point we don't know if what Iran is willing to do. What if we, take these amphibious assault craft or drop a bunch of people in on this island, and then not only do we have to contend with the locals of the island and the military presence that's already there. What if Iran just starts shooting these suicide drones over nonstop? It's only, a little island, so I mean, there's not a lot of places to run. Eventually one of those drones will. You can't shoot them all down. They have a lot, and it's only, I don't know, maybe 10 miles off the coast of Iran. It's really not far. So,
Well,
if they keep.
if I could just talk about just how bad of an idea, because that was the first idea floated, and that was actually one of the ideas that Joe Kent mentioned, and he was just to give you an idea why this is such a bad idea. Like you said, it's not far off the coast of Iran. They have millions of ways they can project power onto that island, and it's not enough to capture it, right? We have to hold it. Capturing it does nothing. We have to hold it. So that means you're going to have how many thousands of Marines, at least a couple thousand, to meaningfully hold the island. And they're 10 miles off the coast. I think anyone who is being honest would have to acknowledge that you're either using those people as a sacrifice or bait to escalate, right? And
Oh
because
yeah.
they would be, and I'm not exaggerating when I say they would be sitting ducks waiting to be pelted with ballistic missiles, suicide drones, whatever the Iranians can throw at it. As a booby traps, right? There's a lot of reports that they've been booby trapping Karg Island. And it's not, they're not wrong, and just this would be terrible. And let's say even if they don't, right? Let's say you have 2,000 Marines on this island, and if a general or an admiral thinks that those troops are at, a threat, maybe they get some intelligence from the Israelis, or maybe our own intelligence signals that there might be a play against them. They're going to use force to defend their troops, as they should, right? But this is the danger of putting boots on the ground. If you put boots on the ground, you have to commit to the protection of those boots, which means that this is only going to escalate. There is no de-escalation, at least from my perspective on that. So,
Yeah, it's scary, and it's one of these things. It's like the sunk cost fallacy. Once you invest in something, you're like, well, I've already, caused 1,000 American deaths and put, $5 billion in this thing. Might as well spend 100 billion more, and I might as well send in, 50,000 troops or something, 50,000 more troops or something. You know,
yeah,
uh, it,
it's
that's
real
kind of
funny.
the.
It's real funny you said that they're, well, we may as well spend 100 billion more. The Trump just asked for 200 billion dollars for this war.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's right. So I'm already
so
downplaying how much.
right, then that's not counting the 40 billion or 30 billion we've already spent. I don't remember how many have died at this point. I mean, we're certainly at like double digits, right? And you're talking in the low hundreds of casualties or people who've been injured. So yeah, it's just like, well, they couldn't have died for nothing. We have to finish the war. We have to finish the mission, right? We ran into this in Vietnam. It's like we can't let those deaths be all for nothing. So I think that further committing to this strategy that you're talking about, to escalate to de-escalate, it's not an effective one. It's only going to lead to further quagmire, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, I, I, I have a lot of worries about. I mean, on one hand, like under the optimum scenario, and maybe their Karg Island approach works, then that would be, a fun, creative solution that could potentially save a lot of American lives as opposed to a full invasion of the country. Maybe that is like the magic bargaining chip. I don't think it would work. I mean, you look at a map of uh, the Persian Gulf, and it's like Karg Island is all the way up. If the Gulf of if the Persian Gulf was like I'm trying to think of an analogy, like a vaginal canal, then the Karg Island would be kind of up near the cervix, like it's up there. So, I mean, just look at a map and see. I mean, you can see how challenging it would be to like land things all the way up there. I mean, even if obviously we would start from higher up. We'd probably start from Kuwait or something, but uh, or well, actually, I don't know. We'd have to start from the very no, we couldn't start from Kuwait. Duh, we'd have to start from the base. So yeah, it would literally be like, I mean, yeah, it's an apt metaphor. Like a sperm cell goes up through the vaginal canal. It's like, and it just so many die along the way, and only one, only a handful get there to fertilize the egg. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it just goes into this idea that like we don't know what we're doing. I legitimately think that there's not a great plan here, and I didn't think that it would ever go this far. I sincerely believe that they thought this was going to be Venezuela, which makes no sense. And let's just talk about this for a second. You talked about our strategic goals and how like we're not hitting them. Darren, I got to be honest with you. I don't think we have strategic goals, right? Because anytime you hear Hegseth or anyone at the Department of War talk about this, all they talk about is this punchline of tactical targets, right? There's no broad vision for how this is supposed to end, right? I mean, it's just like, well, we're going to bomb this energy sector, this military capacity. We're going to bomb this. We're going to bomb this. We're going to bomb. That to me is not a strategy. That's not a goal. you know, that is a checklist, right? And then you have versus the Israelis, right? They are very crystal clear in what their goals are for this war. They want to destroy the IRGC. They are less concerned. And well, hold on. Let me just start over. They want to destroy the IRGC. They want to disrupt Iran's ability to fund their proxies and arm their proxies. And they want to basically make them, the equivalent of either a pro Israeli state or a failed state, right? Let me tell you what Israel does not care about at all. The Strait of Hormuz being closed, they give no fucks. Potential for a migrant crisis of a country that has 90 million people for Europe, they do not care about that. And they do not care about blowback terrorism here in the United States. They do not give a shit. All they care about is what I mentioned before about, ruining their ability to fuck with Israel. That's what they care about, right?
Oh
We
yeah,
have we have
that's
nothing.
the only.
We have nothing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there really are no no goals at this point other than to just resume, the status quo, so going back to where we were
Well, and
before the war. That's really the only thing we have now.
if I may on that too, right? Because that's also astounding to me. Because like it seems like the only thing we're trying to do now is get back to where we were before we attacked. And it's like let me just be clear here. Before the war, Iran didn't have control over the Strait of Hormuz, and now it does, right? Before the war, Iranian oil was sanctioned, and now it's not, right? Before the war, Iran was not building a nuke, and now, I mean, they'd be stupid not to, right? And I don't understand how we're in a better spot now, right? Or how we get to a better spot without humiliation. Like you said, concessions to me through diplomacy. But here's the thing: if you're Iran, why would you take negotiations with us seriously? Trump said it the other day. He said we're in negotiations with Iran, and Iran said, "No, you're the fuck, you're not." And Then they asked Trump, they said, well, who are you negotiating with in Iran? And he said, I'd love to tell you, but they'll probably get killed if I tell you. He's not talking about we're going to go kill them. That wouldn't make any fucking sense. Israel will fucking kill the negotiators, right? Because
Very true.
they've killed them all the time. It makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if what Trump is even saying is true, then yeah, I mean, yes, that would be the only way I could interpret those statements that yeah, like the Israelis would go
Well, it's
kill.
not like they haven't killed them before.
Oh
It's
yeah, oh yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean I think Israel certainly has the willingness to do so, but then again, there's this whole uh, conundrum. It's like, is Trump even negotiating with anyone? I'm
right.
honestly not certain that that's even happening. Or if it is, the Iranians are not keen on letting that fact be known. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's talk about the other escalation, though. The Before we get off the escalate to de-escalate topic,
Oh,
totally.
sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, you're good. It's like, obviously, if you're not going to do a ground invasion, well, what else do you have? Nukes, and that's like, in that sense, like, that's our ultimate trump card. I mean, in some ways, it's like that's like how you could say we control the escalation ladders because Israel and us, we both have nukes, and Iran, at this current date, does not. That being said, even if you nuked Iran, that would cause so many uh, downstream effects. It would be, for one, it'd be unprecedented, and it would be a huge uh, diplomatic blow. It would not look well on us if we did that. So that would not be good on the world stage, for one. Number two, I'm not even certain it would work because, you know, where Iran is building their if they are creating nukes right now, if they are racing towards that, then it would have to be in one of these underground missile cities where our bunker busting bombs can't even reach. So you can't bomb them. It's under a mountain, so you can't stop that from happening. And I've heard things that, a nuke is obviously an incredibly powerful bomb, but if you're nuking a mountain, what's under the mountain likely still will be safe. I mean, there'll be radiation outside and everything, but the mountain, it's, what's under the mountain isn't going to just disappear. You know what I mean? So you can't really just nuke these sites out of existence. Even if nukes were used, I think Iran still at that point races towards a bomb. And then what happens when they nuke Israel in response, or try to nuke us? I mean, obviously they don't have the technology for ICBMs, but what happens if they figure out how to miniaturize it and then they smuggle the nuke, uh, I don't know, like via boat or something into the U.S.? I mean, it's not the most preposterous idea, and they could do that. So it's a very scary time because I don't think we would use a nuke on them personally, because I think we want to like maintain stability. But I could see Israel doing because if Israel thought that they could nuke them uh, to death, and it would preclude Iran from getting a nuclear bomb if they just totally wiped out the Iranian population. I think they would do it, and I think right now the only thing that is holding them back is like this international pressure. You know, they don't want to be seen as like that much of a pariah yet. But I think if enough missiles start breaking through and Israel feels really threatened, I think they will break out the nuke. So,
Yeah, I'll be honest, I am less convinced that they will break one out. I mean, that would be, I mean, even for the Israelis, right? I mean, I hate to put limits on their cruelty and their ability and their attitude towards war, especially, but that would be something hard to swallow. And we as the United States could not allow for that, obviously. But I'm willing to bet we would. Um, if it's all right with you, I would like to go back to the first uh, strategy you said for in terms of an off ramp, which would be diplomacy. And I just want to, because that to me, although unlikely right now, seems to be, you know, the optimal way to go about this. I just wanted to talk about if it were like the president's first choice, which I'm not sure that it is. Let's talk about what it would take to get there. Does that sound fair?
oh yeah, yeah, sounds good to me.
So, in my opinion, the Iranians will not take anything we say seriously until we restrain the Iranians or the Israelis. Because at every step of the way, the Israelis have been the one pushing us towards this war. They are the ones giving us the intelligence about these strikes. They are the ones giving us intelligence about these nuclear capabilities, these ballistic missile programs, all of it, right? And they are the reason that Israel is acting as bold as they are right now during this administration is because they know that they can get away with it. But let me be very clear to the audience. Israel does not have the offensive capabilities to take out and do regime change in Iran by themselves. We have to help them, which is why they need us. They need our, Joe Kent says it best. They need our boots, our treasure, right? They need us. Because even offensive strikes, they have the ability for that. They don't have enough air support to maintain their airspace while they go on offensive strikes. So the key for me is before we can even start serious negotiations with the Iranians, we have to reel in the Israelis. We have to tell them, listen, you're not running the show anymore. We fund you. Let's be very clear. We fund your Iron Dome, your defense capabilities. We also give you a significant portion of your offensive capabilities. We have to rein them in first, because otherwise, why would the Iranians even listen?
Oh yeah, I mean, absent some sign that we're willing to control our the state that's supposed to be our vassal. I doubt that Iranians will have any confidence that we'll negotiate in good faith. I can't imagine they have any confidence right now, so we'll definitely have to show them a sign of goodwill. And I don't know that and you know restraining Israel in some way, manner or another would be the thing to do. It's just I don't know that there's any will for it in this admin or at the or in the government at large. So,
Well, let's say that it was, right? Say that it was in Trump's will to come to a diplomatic solution and he was willing to restrain the Israelis. I mean, I'm not saying that they got to get rid of Iron Dome and all that, but I'm saying what is something substantial that we could, because in my opinion, you can't just tell Benjamin Netanyahu, hey, no more. That's not enough. You have to take something away. Otherwise, because here's the thing in the past, we have told them, hey, no more. You're not doing this. And they just go, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they go back to doing what the fuck they were going to do anyways, right? So versus like think about like Ukraine. Ukraine and Israel are like polar or great examples of like polar opposites in terms of like US foreign money. Uh Ukraine, like Zelensky doesn't take a shit without informing the United States president and making sure it's okay. You know what I mean? On any offensive, any counteroffensive, even on like their defensive strikes, the United States is informed every step of the way and it's greenlit, right? It's only
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Israelis that can launch these strikes with our help and with our money, right? Putting our boots at risk and then not count for anything. So you have to, I mean, I would tell them, hey, no more offensive funding. I mean, I don't, that to me, there's no will for that in this administration. But like, if we were being serious about peace, that's one of the things that we would have to do. We have to take something tangible away from them. Otherwise, they're not going to learn their fucking lesson. And
Yeah,
that's not even enough. That's just a start to
yeah, that would
negotiations.
be a good starting place. I think the Iranians would probably not find that to be sufficient. Yeah, they'd probably want even more.
Well, they would want concessions, right? Like they would want, oil sanction relief, which I understand that they have right now, but it's temporary. But they would want it in writing, right? And they would, I listen. The Iranians have to know by now that we are pretty serious about using force, but they need to know that we're serious about diplomacy too, because that's really the only exit ramp we have short of a full-scale invasion and occupation, right? So if they don't know that we're serious about diplomacy, then everything else is futile. So like, and they do want some pretty outrageous stuff, at least from my perspective. Like they do want, I think they want reimbursement for all the damages cost to them to the war, and I'm like, no shot, right? No senator is gonna vote, right, for a U.S. aid package to Iran, right? No senator in this fucking country is gonna vote for that. But oil sanction relief, right? Like, something towards stability and peace. But honestly, like you said, do the Israelis want that? And what do they do in response? So
Yeah, I think probably it would have to be a big long list of things. It would have to be sanction relief. It would have to be punishing the Israelis in some way or another. Maybe the permanent abandonment of a few of these bases in the Gulf, if not all of them. Uh, I'm trying to think of like what could possibly work right now if they're in the room negotiating. Maybe I mean at this point it seems like Iran holds a lot of the cards, so I would almost say, they maybe even like a Palestinian state, which I highly doubt. I mean, there's just no way that that would be achievable, but I mean, I bet that would probably go a long way if if you could somehow guarantee that. I mean, of course, this is
they
it's
would not allow that. Just so you know,
yeah,
that would be off the table, obviously. But I mean, shit. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think that our ideas are any more or less ridiculous than that Karg Island thing. And listen, here's the problem with who's making the ideas now, because they'll say shit like, Lindsey Graham will say stuff on Fox News on Air Force One, like, oh, we'll just go take Karg Island, as if it's just something to do, right? As if it's like you and me. It's like, well, we'll just go to the grocery store on the way home, like as if it's that easy, right? Or and it's one of those things. I said it at the time. I was like, listen, Venezuela's giving people a lot of false hope, because even though I oppose it, right, it was a pretty successful mission from like what we aim to accomplish, right? And now everyone thinks that that's the standard for like, oh, well, everything's going to be like this. And that's how they lured us here. And now we're fucked. So,
I think so. I think Trump got way too confident in our ability. Like Venezuela is nowhere near the power of Iran.
yeah.
And I
Now
mean,
let's. Yeah, I agree. Sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I mean that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, it's like Venezuela is run by these corrupt, basically criminals with no real ideology. They're not going to die for anything, and that's why that we're on friendly terms with them now. Now that their vice president is running things, but
Right.
there's no way that this could happen uh, in Iran. I mean, they're
Well, actually,
ideologically driven.
It's really funny too because the Iranians had the opposite thing that happened in Venezuela. Because in Venezuela, we took away the one ideological guy, right? And then more moderate, more pro-US, sentiment people took over. Because, like you said, they're a bunch of corrupt socialist scumbags who were just like, okay, you'll give us money, okay, that's fine. The
Yeah.
Iranians are not that, And here's the thing: a lot of people don't know this. We killed the moderates. We did not kill the hardliners. We're still not killing the hardliners, right? So if there right now there are two camps in Iran. There are the clerics, which are more like dovish, from in air quotes, and then you have the IRGC, which are these are Iran's military guard. These are the students of Qasem Soleimani who fought the United States in Lebanon and in Syria and in Iraq, right? And they are hardliners. They are like, look at what this moderation got us, right? Like, and let's be very clear, the Iranians are fighting for their fucking survival right now. So it makes no sense to continue to push them into a corner and make them feel like they have to take more drastic action because they will because that's their only choice. That's part of why I can't understand how they never thought that they were going to close the strait because what the fuck else do they have? So, but let's talk about the next 30 days, 90 days, midterms, right? How do you see this going? How do you see this affecting Trump's political capital? And is there any real win here for him? Or is there any way to spin this as a win?
Mm, Short of some miraculous Karg Island victory, victory and then pull out, I don't think Trump is gonna in any way going to be able to spin this into a credible victory. So I say 95% chance it's probably going to be really really bad for him uh, whenever this ends, and hopefully it doesn't drag on to the midterms. If it does, then you can certainly bet there will be a blue tsunami. I already predicted that the Democrats would win the House and the Senate this time. And, if this continues all the way, uh, to the midterms, then I don't even think that'll be a crazy prediction anymore. I think that'll be almost obvious that they will win both. So
Yeah,
it
I
does not
mean,
bode well.
I listen, here's the thing. The Senate is still very I mean, that is a bold uh like assumption on your part. I mean, the House at this point to me is a given. I mean, that would be the miracle is if they won the House. The Republicans, that is, if they kept the House, that would be the miracle. Although Mike Johnson seems to think that they can do it. But the Senate is still a long haul. And here's the thing, man. Like, I think that if this is still going on by November, uh, Congress has to do drastic action. Like I would call for Congress, and I'm not exaggerating. I would call for Congress to pull and hold uh, Department of War funding until this war is over, because they never voted on authorization, right? So it's one of those things. It's like if we get in the majority in both houses, like I want to see some consequences for this. If we find out, like, I mean, listen, I don't know that you can impeach a president over this, and I know you might think that that's fucking silly of me to say, but I'm just saying, I mean, listen, he didn't ask for war. There was no imminent threat for us. That's the only authorization he has constitutionally, and there's no glimpse that that was there. So why can't we impeach him for that? And why shouldn't we? Is my question. Why the fuck shouldn't we? Right? We've got a couple of hundred soldiers injured, a couple of them dead on his behalf. Why shouldn't we be able to get him out of office for that? What do you think?
Uh, I think the reason they impeach him is probably less important. I mean, he's so corrupt. You can impeach him for just about anything. I mean, try to find some evidence of insider trading. I mean, that's obviously going on. So that would be just as good a reason. And I say that because I don't, if a president in the future wants to take unilateral action against an adversary, I don't want them to think that, oh, maybe I shouldn't because I'll get impeached. Uh, so I don't want to set a bad precedent in that regard, even though this is kind of different. So I don't think it would be too hard of a case to make. But there's so much that you could impeach and probably even convict him on that I don't even think you'd have to focus on the war as being the reason for it. I mean, get him for all this corruption he deals in, and that would certainly be just as good. Or you know, anything. I do hope that once the Democrats take the House and hopefully the Senate, I hope they impeach him, and I really wouldn't mind if they convicted him of something and put him in jail because we we just got to get rid of him. He's like a lunatic. So
Now let me ask you this, and we can kind of wrap up on this. I know I'm holding you a little long. I'm holding you hostage.
no, you're fine. Fine.
But I did want to ask you because it's not enough for me to see these, Republican people come out and say that like, oh, I regret endorsing and helping Trump, right? That's not enough for me personally. For me, they have to do what you did early on in the administration during all the Doge nonsense. Is they have to come out and they have to say Kamala would have been better. Because it's not enough for me to accept somebody and back into the coalition of, the anti-Trump coalition if they say, hey, I regret voting for him, right? They can't. That's not enough. I need you to say the words Kamala would have been better. Kamala would not have let this war happen, right? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? You think I'm being a jackass? You think I'm being too harsh, or do you think that there's merit to what I'm saying?
Uh, I mean, I agree that obviously that Kamala would have been much better, especially at this point. Uh, I think, strategically, if someone was like, oh, you know what, I regret voting for Trump, just I'd be like, okay, I accept that. And, you know, uh,
No. From average voters, I'm fine. Like if you're talking to some dude at the bar, that's fine with me. But like, I don't think Dave Smith has quite said that yet, right? I don't
oh,
think
I see
I
what you
don't
mean.
think
Yes.
Sean Ryan has quite said that. The Hodge twins, and listen, I'm not saying that they have to be full on like, yeah, you know what? I was wrong about like, for a lot of them, like the trans stuff or the open border. Like now I'm open border and now I'm pro trans and da da da. No. I don't need to say that. I don't need them to say that. I need them to say that, like, listen, despite all of that, Kamala is still better. Would have been better. That's all I need from the commentators, right?
Oh, yeah, especially from the commentators. I'm in full agreement. I would like them to
And Tucker too,
go.
especially.
Oh, I'd love to see that from Tucker. Yeah, I'd like to see them go hard, and because people like Tucker, Tucker especially, he still refrains from ever criticizing Trump in any meaningful way. It'll be the most paltry critique if any critique is levied against him. So that in particular is kind of pathetic, and I get that in some way he has to play to his audience to probably maintain credibility with the rubes and all that. But yeah, I think people like that should eat some crow and say, yeah, Kamala would have been better because she would have.
Yeah,
And
oddly enough, Nick Fuentes can say it. Like, what are you saying? You're not right enough for Nick Fuentes. Is that what you're saying? Like I don't get it. Why these people can't just stand up and just be like, you know what, we we got this one wrong. you know.
yeah, I don't know if it's like pride or what, but I mean, it's just objective reality. at this point. So
Because
I
essentially what they're saying, right? For those that refuse to say that Kamala was better, or yeah, that Kamala would have been better, they're saying that the potential for Kamala Harris was worse than this, right? Or worse than the tariff war, right? The global war on tariffs, right? Like it's I don't know what to do with these people anymore. The level of idiocy that is needed to make that conclusion is just beyond my explanation.
yeah, I obviously like I think Kamala would probably have just been, Biden too. It doesn't seem that she deviated much from his policy. So, obviously she wouldn't be some revolutionary, but she would still, if as long as she didn't bring us to war with Iran, as long as the status quo was maintained, I would have been pretty pleased with it. You know, I would have been like, okay, I'm not in love with it, but I can accept it, and it could be worse. So